Hi, everyone. Very warm welcome once again to everyone who has taken your precious time to join us here. My name is Eileen, and with me today, I have my teammate Lionel.
Hello.
Yep. And today is going to be 1.5 hours, and we are going to answer the 3 why questions that you must always prepare for before you show up for an interview. So, yeah. And for those of you who are familiar with us, who have already seen us before in our webinars, a warm welcome again. Those of you who are new to us, you will know that the way we run our webinars, especially Lionel and myself, we tend to make it very interactive. So I'm asking the audience whoever is here with us today that you will ask as many questions as you can, and we will try our best to answer the questions within this session itself. So everyone good with that?
Okay, yeah, put your questions in the Q&A box, please, so that we can take a look, and we will try to address them, as many of them as possible where time permits.
Yep. And those of you who are new to us, I just want to introduce our Career Center very briefly. We are a full-fledged career center. We specialize in banking and financial sector. And as career coaches, we help you in every stage of your job search journey. So whether you are applying for jobs, you are writing resumes, you need help with your interviewing techniques, we do have a group of career advisors like ourselves who can help you. So if you are new to us, please see what we have to offer, and I hope you sign up to see one of us soon. Yep, and we are ready. Do we have anyone in the chat? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Today we're going to talk about today we are going to prepare you for your upcoming interviews, right? It's now August, and there are quite a lot of job openings happening right now. And those of you who have showed up today, what we want to do today is to really prepare you for your interviews, whatever kind of interviews that you're going for, by zoning in on the 3 critical why questions that show up at almost every interview. And as usual, Lionel and I do this tag team, and we again remind you, please ask as many questions as you can. So what we are going to cover, I'm going to cover first what we call the guiding principles to job search and interviews specifically, and then we can move on to unpacking each of the 3 why questions. And then we'll talk a little bit more about how you can answer them and how you can avoid making a mess out of your entire interview. Okay, principle number 1, chicken or fish. I use this picture so that you can remember this image long after this webinar is over. The reason why I use chicken or fish is because every time you go into a group and you ask people whether they prefer to eat chicken or fish, almost always you will get 50% of people saying they will eat chicken. The other 50% will say they eat fish. So the point I want everyone to take away from this slide, right, is that in job search, you can ask 10 or 20 people for advice on anything about how you're going to write your resumes, whether your resume should have a cover letter, whether it should be 3, 4, or 5 pages. You are going to get 50% of people supporting your viewpoint and the other 50% saying, no, you should not do that. So this is something to be expected. The more people you ask about what to do in your job search, right, the more confusion there is going to be. So I just want to encourage everyone that when you actually are navigating your own job search, to remember the chicken or the fish. And the answer for each of us when we do our job search is, pick the one that makes sense to you at that point. Job search is not about having a chicken for the rest of your life. It's about choosing the chicken or the fish that you prefer at that stage. Okay, so Lionel, as usual, please cut in if you have anything to add. Okay, now that you understand the chicken or the fish, the next principle I would like everyone to remember is this: eat the meat and spit out the bones. Very often our team, right, encounters candidates who come to us after having met 5 different career coaches before. And then every time we try to share something, the candidate will say, oh, the previous coach number 4 said this, coach number 1 said this. Why do you say something differently? So my encouragement to everyone is that do enjoy the number of coaches that you have. And for every coach that you listen to, simply take what's important to you, eating the meat, and just throw away whatever is not relevant to you, spit out the bones. So with that, I hope you remember the first two classical principles of job search, which is the chicken and the fish, or eat the meat and spit out the bones. So that's two principles.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but because, ultimately you are the one who's doing the job search. So you got to do something that you're comfortable with. Because if you're going to be uncomfortable with certain advice that any of the coaches gives you, you may just sabotage. Oops, did I just give for the next seminar? Anyway, what I'm saying is, as what Eileen say, absorb what each person is advising you. Which one that you feel comfortable with, go with it. So that at the end of the day, you own the job search, you own your resume, you own what you do during the interview.
Yep. Thank you, Lionel. Ready to move on? Principle number 3. This is specifically an interviewing principle. There is always a question behind the question. Now, what does this mean? That means that every time an interviewer asks a question, for example, some questions like, how many kids do you have? That's not actually the real question. Behind that question, there is actually a real question behind. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's session, answering the actual question that is behind that question that you get at interviews. And a tip for those of you who have been through interviews, right, where the interviewer keeps on repeating that same question in different forms. The reason why the interviewer actually does that is because you are not answering his or her real question behind that question. So this is one of the key things that I would like everyone to take away today. This principle that should take you along through your interviews. And the last principle that I have for everyone to remember, if you can't remember any of the previous principles, is what you say about something says something about you. So basically, whatever you respond to an interview question, right, is actually not what you're saying using those words, but you're actually portraying something else about yourself that is talking to the interviewer. So again, this is what we really want everyone to remember. And if you don't remember anything else from this session, this is what you need to remember. Yeah, this particular slide. So, okay.
Christmas tree slide.
Yeah. Yeah, that was 4 slides, our principle 4. Yeah. Okay, so we're done with the guiding principles. I hope everyone can remember the very last one, which is, what you say about something, always say something about you. And now we're going to go through unpacking the 3 why questions, and we will take a look at what we mean by answering the question that's really behind the question. So to answer the questions, we need to remember that in every interview, the employers are always going to require 3 pieces of information about yourself that they use to assess your suitability. So the first piece of information is, can you do the job? Right? The second piece of information is, will you do that job? And the difference between can you do the job and will you do the job is the very first piece of information, can you do the job, deals with your actual skills and experience, which means something that's outside of yourself, right? So that's external. Number 2, will you do the job? This is talking about your what's internal to you, which is your attitude, your character, your aspirations, and your goals. Okay, and Lionel, I'm counting on you to stop me if
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Okay, we're going to talk about salary later.
Yeah, that was the question that came in just now. Yeah.
Yes, okay, thank you for the questions, guys. We will talk about that. And the third thing that interviewers always look for is the last bit. Wait, let me just make sure it's here. The last question. So first is, can you do the job, which is your skills and experience? Second, will you do the job, your attitude, your character, your personality? Now, the third question is where all the variations come in. Do you fit our whatever? Okay, do you fit our culture? Do you fit our demographic? Now, we notice that nobody talks about this very honestly, but we want to just highlight to you that in many times, right, when you are rejected for a job, you are actually being rejected due to this. What the employer perceives as you don't fit their demographic. What do we mean by this? In other words, if the employer has a very young team made of Gen Z people, the employer may not be that receptive to hiring someone who is a boomer. So that's one example. Or the employer may have a male-dominated team and therefore is not receptive to hiring a lady who has just given birth, for example. So that's about demographic. Organizational structure, if say you're coming from an organization where there are many layers, people from a startup where the structure is very flat, they may not want to hire you for that reason. And of course, expectations, we're talking about sometimes the employers expect candidates, employees to work late, to regularly work overtime. And they don't ask this directly during the interview, but they're trying to ask a lot of other questions to determine whether candidates are willing to do overtime. So when you say something, for example, oh, I'm taking a part-time master's course, that then disqualifies you for that job. That's one example. And working style and budget. So of course, when employers know they cannot meet your salary expectations, for example, that's when they will give you that perfect answer that says, oh, you are too good for this role. So to the person who has said that, some interviewers said the largest issue for this role, you're too good for this role, this is probably what they are saying, that they perceive that the role is too small for you, that the moment if they offer you the job, they expect you to be on the lookout for something with better pay or better title or more scope for whatever reason, and they decide to reject you upfront instead of letting you try out the role. Yeah. Lionel, if you have something to add, just let me know.
Yeah, those are very good explanation. Yeah. So basically, as what we try to compartmentalize into three because it's easier for you to remember. So you will realize that when there could be 1,001 questions that you can see on Google on what the interviewer is going to ask you, but basically you can divide them into these three triangle or whatever you call them. Whether first one is, as what Eileen say, external, internal, and then it's all about the organization. How they need to see whether you would be able to work in the organization, because they don't like to do hiring again. So if they feel that you may not fit, I'm sorry if they jump the gun or whatever, don't give you a chance. But the thing is, they would rather not risk it that you will quit after 1 week, 2 weeks, and then they have to do all over again. So that's where we are coming from.
Yeah. And so with that, right, what I want everyone to be able to understand at this point is that, remember, when you go for an interview, you are always saying something about yourself. And if you know that what the employer is really looking for during an interview is to find evidence for the three areas, can, will, and fit, through your answers, then you know that when you do interview preparation, your preparation has to consist of nothing but evidence that shows that you can do the job, that you will do that job, and you actually fit what the employer is looking for. So with this, this is how I want to structure today's session, that I hope everyone is remembering. Evidence to every question. Okay, so we're going to take a look at why, number one. Why do you want this job? So, of course, some of you may say, no, they have not asked me this question. So what I'm going to do is that for this, every question, every why that we are going through, there are various ways that employers ask this question. And the purpose of this question is to really discover your motive for wanting that job. Because if you have a motive for that job that does not fit the employer's goals, then you will get rejected no matter how perfect your answers are when you actually answer them. So let's take a look at what are the different variations that, this question actually comes in. So I've got, these are different ways that employers ask this question. Tell me about yourself, tell me about the last job, tell me about the last project. So they are not really interested in yourself as a person. They are not interested in your last job or the last project. What they're really looking for is that when you tell them about your last job and project, you can share with them evidence that shows them that you can do the job that they want you to do. So when you answer questions, what we want you to do is to be able to remember, okay, this question is asked, and I'm taking this question as an opportunity to show my skills and my experience. So I hope that you know where we are going with this. So what motivated you to apply for this job? What do you know about the company or the role? Now, in our practice, right, we have encountered many candidates who don't have a good reason for why they wanted a certain job. And we are going to go through that later. And we also have got people who go for interview, who have applied for so many jobs, and they get called up for interviews and they don't know what the company is, or they don't even have the time to do any research about the company before showing up for the interview. So that's something that we see a lot, and something for you to take note of. And if you're wondering why I used Iron Man as the trigger for this series of slides, right, it's because Iron Man is powered by an artificial intelligence called Jarvis, and anything that he wanted Jarvis to do, Jarvis would be able to do. So in the same way as candidates, right, you have got a career center, you have got career coaches who can work with you as your Jarvis. But you are the master and owner of your job search journey. So this is what we'd like you to be able to take away from this, okay? And the question, where do you see yourself in X years? Now, you may wonder why this question is important, right? It's because, for example, if you're interviewing at a small startup, which does not even know if it's going to make it big in the next 5 years, and then that startup that you're interviewing at only has a staff strength of 10, and you say you want to be a team leader of 50 in 5 years' time, you're not likely to get that job. Yeah. So, like, as usual, if you've got some nice example to share, I'm going to just leave you to share the examples. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And what does a day in your ideal job look like? Now, this again coincides with the fit part of the equation, right? So, if, for example, you say a typical day in my ideal job, I will work from home. I will start work at 10:30 in the morning. And then after that, I will go for an early lunch at 11 o'clock. And I will come back, do a bit of work. And, if you say something really extreme like that, you are disqualifying yourself right off at this answer. Okay. And remember, you are supposed to give evidence of your fit for that job. So if there's a part of you that doesn't fit, right, the employer has got 1,001 ways to determine that. And so as candidates, we want you to go into an interview prepared, like you're going into battle. So because this is what it really is. So, and the next question, what is the most important thing for you in a job? Now, this is important because if you say the most important thing in the job for me is to say, for example, have good teammates, and then you're interviewing for a company where there's been very high turnover, it's a toxic environment, then again, you're not likely to get that job. So that's one thing. And if the most important thing in the job for you is money or fast track promotion, then very likely if that company is not known for fast track promotion, again, not going to get through this question. So for the last question, which is what other companies did you apply for? Now, the very last question, right, is not often asked, but it is used as a filter because if an interviewer asks you about all the other preceding questions, and they still can't find any loophole, the last question is used to test whether you are as good as you say you really are.
I think all the thing behind this question Eileen is trying to tell you guys is please do your preparation, please do your research on the company, because so that you can be able to answer any of this type of question when, why do you want this job? because you need to be able to know why is it you apply. Of all the companies, why you apply for this company. Of all the roles, why did you apply for this particular role? You must be able to answer that. And to be able to answer that, you need to really research yourself to get a clear understanding of how to answer these questions.
Thanks, Lionel. Hey, I do have one question. Why do companies ask what other jobs you apply for? So one reason for that, right, when they ask that question, what other jobs are you, they are understanding which can I say market you are playing in. So for example, if you are going for tier 1 investment banks, right, and if you tell investment bank A that you are interviewing with all their competitors, this possibly increases their perception of your attraction as a candidate. Yeah.
And you know what you're saying, you see, because you know who are the people that are in that particular bracket, right?
Yes.
So that you know, I mean, if you're going to apply for Coca-Cola, you should apply for Pepsi-Cola.
Yeah, or the likes. Whereas if you were to say, for example, if you tell me about yourself or what motivated you, right? If you were to start off by saying that, oh, you're so passionate about this particular job, this particular role, and then they ask you, what other companies are you applying for? And you say something totally opposite. You're applying for different roles with different companies. Then again, you are totally destroying the perception that you have created for yourself.
So, the brand that you're trying to identify yourself with, you need to be consistent.
Yeah. And how should you answer the interviewer, right? Okay, Lionel, you can take this. How should you answer if the interviewer asks you what other companies did you apply for? Should you be honest with your other applications or not?
Yeah, I would say honesty is still the best policy. As we said just now, if you can identify their competitors, it means that you have done your research, you know what the deal is all about, what it takes to be successful in this role, because you know who are the players in this role. And so, you know, it's fair. As what Eileen said, it shows that you're confident. You know that, you know, all these top companies would be willing to have a look at you. Yeah. So that's you should just be honest and say yes. If for whatever reason you feel that I'm not fit, and if your competitor feel that I fit, then you know you're lost lah.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah. And thank you for this question. I actually thought it was a very good question. And the next follow-up question is, what if that's the only job in that field available? Oh, I'm going to get both of us to share our perspectives, right? For me, I would be honest and say this is the only job that this company is applying, so I'm applying for this. And because there's no other job like that in Singapore, as an alternative, I am applying for these other roles.
I think there's not much you could squeeze out of this. Be honest about it. As we said, if you are really interested, give evidence to show why you're interested. I mean, I may be jumping the gun, but you know, you could say things like, you know, you've taken up courses on it, or you have you are in a growing committee, or about all these things, you know, just to show that yes, it's the only field available, and you have committed a lot of your time, a lot of your attention on it.
Yeah, and if anything, right, yes, they are asking to see the pattern that you are going with, because if that was the only job in the field available, and you can share with them that I know that this is the only job available, I'm putting all in to apply for this job, and I'm hoping you give me the opportunity. But if you don't, I've got other backups. And that actually, remember our last principle was what you say about something says something about you. So then when you say, I've got these other things planned, lined up for myself, and I'm interviewing with these other companies, then that is actually showcasing the fact that you have got planning in your career search, your job search, and that you also have, you are also showcasing your thought process. So, job search is really not about just knowing the right words to use in your CV or to conjure up in your interview. It's really about your personal brand expressing itself through these things. Yeah, so that's really what we want everyone to take away. To the question, no, the
No
slides are
slides.
not available for download, but you're free to take screenshots. So yeah. And most importantly, please ask along, because from experience, the people who ask us questions always get the most out of the webinars. So yeah, please ask along. Oh, wait.
Wow. See, they listen to you immediately.
Okay. Okay. I like the questions. Okay, how to use my past internship experience to convince employees? So same thing. You are remembering your internship experience gives you skills. It showcases your motive, your motivations, your aspirations, your goals, which is your values, your character. And it also will showcase your fit. So internship experience is essentially no different from a real work experience, except that you're not getting paid.
You are, but very miserably, that's all.
Yeah. And the next question, I've encountered interviewers saying, what if you're not offered this role? What if I offered you another role? Will you take it? For me, I would just say, can I know more about it before I make my decision? Yeah.
Yeah, you got to find out more, because as what we said, you got to be consistent with your persona. This could be, I mean, I'm not saying anything, but it could be a trick question to see whether you are really, focused on certain roles, and not just later you'll see desperate and just grab anything that's available. So ask them. You have the right to ask them, what is this role about? Or even you can ask them, what do you think why do you think I'm a better fit for this role? What have I said? What have I, what have you seen on my resume that makes you think that this is a better role for me?
Yeah.
Right? So just so that you can be consistent as what we said in your persona. Because like say if they offer you something that is really complete opposite of what you've been saying, then straight away you gave yourself away, whether you like it or not.
And that's the chicken part of the equation. So the fish answer to this, the other 50% answer to this question, right, is that sometimes you may not fit that first role that you applied for, but if they really were sincere about getting you into the organization in another role, there are times when you really want to grab it, because that's the only way you can get your foot in the door. So again, it is a chicken versus fish situation.
I think the safest ground is find out more about it, so that you could pivot, right, towards that. Because if you don't have enough information on it, don't jump the gun by saying yes or no. Find out more about the role before you answer. You have the right to do it. Even if you need more time to think about it, you are okay to ask for more time to think about it.
Yep. Yes. Thanks, Lionel. So the next question is, so the principle of this why question, number 1, is to make yourself look very motivated and well prepared. Yes, because employers by default, between 2 candidates who have exactly the same skills, of course, everyone wants to employ the one who is more motivated for that role, for that company. Yeah. And then, wow, okay, the next question, how to answer interview questions when in a role or industry you've had no prior experience in before and still make them think that you're a good fit. Now, this is a very broad question. I'm going to, we probably cannot answer this in a quick session, because we do have an entire webinar on what we call career pivoting alone. I'm going to leave this question for later. Alan, we can leave it there and we will try to address it along the way. So the next question is, okay, very relevant. Okay, I'm ready to move on from this question, because some of what we are going to cover in the next few slides is going to answer your questions. Okay, so let's move on a bit. Okay, and remember this principle. You're going to hear me repeating this, because if there's nothing else you take away from today, it is this, what you say about something says something about you. And for this question, why do you want this job? Okay, we have got a series of these very common responses we see our candidates give. And the title you see, for example, under copycat, right, is the impression that you are giving by giving this sort of answers. So for example, data is the hottest topic right now. And I think we probably have I think out of every 100 people who apply to go into data, especially those who are not doing data before, almost 100 people that we meet, right, we will see easily. I'm going to leave Lionel to give us a statistic, but most of them tell us that my friends are all doing data, and this is the reason I am also doing data. Guys, so as much as you think this question is very attractive, it's very attractive to answer this way. This is just saying that you are a copycat. There's nothing that really interests you about data, and we see this all the time. There are many people who have come from a different domain, can be risk, compliance, front office, or whatever. They have zero interest in data. And then because all their friends are talking about AI and data, they go take a course and they say that, oh, I'm going to change job because, I just want to get into data. There's no compelling reason from your CV or your hobbies or your interests that is telling us that you are remotely interested in data. So this is what we are saying. Okay. So the next box, the one in gray that goes into an interview and you say, why do I want this job? I want this job because I want the opportunity to learn this. Now, this is making you sound very entitled because you're not there to contribute, and employer doesn't want, the employer is not a training institute. So they're not there to train you up. And when you respond with this kind of what we call self-centered answers, it doesn't make you look very good. Okay, so this is our perspective and our experience. Feel free to share your comments in the Q&A box. Okay, the next part, yellow box. I have 40 years of experience and I'm a good fit for a management trainee role. Now, we get this sometimes, and we are just using an extreme example to help you understand that many of our candidates are applying for jobs that they know nothing about. For example, right, within LinkedIn itself, you will see a lot of management trainee roles. And the only requirement for the management associate or management trainee roles, right, is that you have a university degree from a recognized university, right? If I'm not wrong, they don't usually say they need anything else, right? However, in our experience, these companies that are advertising for these roles, right, they typically require someone who is very new in the workforce. In other words, someone who is below a certain age. Okay, so we are talking about things like ageism and whatever, right? But the thing is, within the industry itself, when companies advertise for management training roles, they are looking for younger people.
Yes.
So if you're not in that age group, best not to spend your time applying for these jobs. So that's what we are saying. And then, one word of encouragement to everyone who's facing this. It's better to focus your energy on jobs that are suitable for you than to spend time just ruminating why companies are not, considering you for this kind of job. So that's one thing. Okay. And then the next thing, Simon says, I followed all my, I put there in brackets in italics, authority figures advice. I took a course to upgrade my skills, and so I'm qualified. Now we get this, this is probably the top problem with a lot of our candidates, because many people take a course for which they have zero experience in, and then they apply for that job, and they don't understand why they were not even called out for an interview. Yeah. And I'm going to look at the questions because I think some of you will have questions about this. And the very last green box is desperado, right? I need this job. If you go into an interview saying that I'm applied for this job and my only motivation is I need this job, you're not, again, painting a very attractive picture of yourself. Okay. Okay, ready to look at questions now? Yeah. Oh, I like the questions. Okay.
Yeah, very good questions, actually.
Yeah, thank you for asking the questions. Please keep them coming. We're trying our best. Yeah, so I hope we have answered partly that question about coming into a different industry, because if you don't have any relevant skills or experience, you're going to have a very hard time convincing people that you can do that job, which is the first of the 3 requirements. If you can, then proving that in the CV is just a matter of techniques. The next question is, I have many training certs in various areas in IT. Should I include all of them in my resume or only those relevant ones? Okay, so this is a very good question. Thank you for that. And the reason is this, the certs, right, they do two things for you. First off, we want to make sure that you understand what is the purpose. The first thing we want everyone to remember is that just including training certs in your CV is not doing anything for you if you have zero practical experience in those areas. Because these days, employers only look for actual practical relevant experience. So having a long list of certs does not help you. Secondly, this is the other side of the coin that I want you to remember. So remember, what you do is saying something about you. So when you have a long list of certs, right, it is showing people that you are constantly upgrading yourself. So depending on your individual specific situation, I would actually consider putting all the certs in, whether or not they are relevant or not, because they are all within IT. I would have a question mark about putting in everything if you are taking baking courses, early childhood courses, and then another set of courses on IT. Then I will have a big question mark about whether you want to put everything.
Yeah, I think when it comes to certification, it's kind of be a little bit sensitive. My take is, if you feel that, I mean, for sure, any cert out there is going to help you move closer. But you must have the mindset to think that it doesn't guarantee you to be hired. As what we said, if you have zero experience in it, taking a cert, and again, how long it takes to get the cert? Is it a 2 day, 3 days thing on LinkedIn and then you get the cert and then you're like, okay, this is a very important cert? Or is it, you know, a real detail, you spend 3 to 6 months or even longer in a disciplined environment to get this? Again, it tells a difference. So I would say be careful with what you want to put on the cert. As what we said, it tells about you, right? I mean, what you put also speaks about yourself, right? Are you the one that do no idea what you want and just take whatever certs that people say, hey, you should take this cert, it's very good, or take that cert, very good.
Yeah.
I mean, there must be a plan on why you have this collection of cert, as what you say, right? So that when the hiring manager look at the certs that you have, it tells the stories of what you're portraying yourself. You have a disciplined mindset on, okay, if I'm interested, let's say in digital marketing, right? Then I should be taking those certs that helps me to become a better digital marketer, right? And I will not take things that may or may not be related to become a good digital marketer. So that's what I'm trying to say. So be careful about what cert you want to take. Be careful of what cert you want to put out there, because as what we said, one of the guiding principle is whatever you say, whatever you put there, it says something about you. It portrays the hiring manager will have a certain persona about you, right? Because I know you have heard this from other coaches or even myself. They'll tell you, oh, you take some courses, it shows that you want to upskill yourself, you want to improve yourself, or when you have a career break, you take some courses, so it shows that you are, trying to improve yourself and things like that. It's true, but choose those courses or certs or carefully, right?
Yes.
Don't just take it because it's there to
You're trying to, So I think I agree with what Lionel said, right? So remember, whether you take courses or not, right? It's all about your personality. If you're always been a curious person, always learning new things, right? That is going to show up in your LinkedIn, in your social media posts, in your CV, when you talk. So it's very natural. But if you're just someone who is trying to use this technique from other people and say, oh, career coach Lionel says, put in all these courses, right? It's not going to work for you, because somehow or other, the fact that you're not truly interested in learning is going to come out during the interview. Okay. I'm going to not answer the questions in order, because some of our later slides are going to answer these questions. And I just want to answer a quick one here from, copycat means that you have no real motivation. Entitled and desperate makes you look bad. Misguided means that you're not even clear about what that job really is before you apply for that job. And Simon Says, what they say about yourself, right? In Simon Says is, I listened to my mother, I listened to my spouse, and I did this. So it's showing that you have no ownership, you have no personal ownership of your career. Okay. So I'm going to move on. Okay, what are your answers saying about you? Okay, this is a suggested response. I'm not asking everyone to copy this, but let me just show you just how a response can come together, right? So for example, why do you want this job? I do understand that this role is doing task A, task B, task C. Okay, so you're already showcasing that, you know, I have always been doing this, and my past 3 jobs I have been doing this. So you are showing that you are experienced, you are passionate, and remember our 3 can, will, fit, right? You're showing that you can do the job and will do the job, you're passionate. Then when you, in the third box that says motivated, right? I'm saying that I started, you know, for example, I have a primary job in data. Then on my own, I started to do volunteer, you know, to be a volunteer coach for teaching other people how to do data. So then these are the things that showcase that you are really all about data. Then along the way, I discovered this job opportunity. That means that you have been looking. And then in your sentence, when you actually say it out, you are again repeating to the interviewer that this fits what I have to offer. So you're reminding the interviewer that I'm offering the things that you need. Okay, and what I am looking for, reminding the interviewer that I do want this job, and this is the reason I'm here today. Now, when you answer something like that, right, it makes the interviewer pick up on you, and it hooks the interviewer to ask the next follow-up question related to what you have said, so that your interview does not go into a wrong direction and you start talking about your children or your gap. So I hope everyone is following this. Wait, let me see. Okay. And then I'm going to move on. Okay, second why. Why should I hire you? I'm using the picture of Spider-Man here is because Spider-Man took over Iron Man when he died. So this is the only reason.
Not many people will get this. Nobody will even know that Spider-Man died young.
Anyway, okay. Okay, so the question, why should I hire you, is again asked in many different variations, right? So tell me about yourself, your job, your project. So remember your question, your answer to the very first question, tell me about your job, is actually answering 2 of these questions for the employers. Why do you want this job, and why should I hire you? Your strengths and weaknesses is another way for the interviewer to get the evidence that you can do this job or you can't do this job. Okay, your greatest achievements or a challenging situation with a people, project, or task. And why should I not hire you? So these are all questions that are designed for the interviewer to actually determine whether can you do that job, and, you know, are you really fit for that job? Okay. And again, so the next slide, we will have a series of answers and what they make you look like. Okay. So the choice of words, when you remember what you say about something, says something about you, right? So if you go in there and try to use the worst kind of words, I'm the best person for the job that I know, it's just going to show off as a very arrogant person. You're not going to get far. Okay. And then the second box, why I call it entitled, is because many people come back from a career break. And for them, right, they have identified fully with a career gap, whatever that gap is. And then they go into an interview asking for a favor. I hope you give me an opportunity because I just had a career break. I thought that I am applying for this lower position to give you and to give me a chance to adjust back to the working life. So we have heard responses like this, and we're telling you now that this response is putting the wrong focus on you and your gap and your need for the employer to slow down to fit you. Okay, so this is about what your answer is saying about yourself. Self-unaware. So for example, right, if you are interviewing at a place where you know that the company, a startup or a social media company like TikTok, Shopee, or Lazada, all these companies, they are famous for being very fast-paced. They maybe work round the clock, and they are famous for, their workforce is generally younger. So if you are looking for jobs in that kind of space, you cannot, one of the questions that you will face will be, our team is really young and most of them are under 30. Okay, will you be able to fit in? And the worst kind of answers that you can give will be, yeah, I get along with my children, my toddlers, or my grandchildren. Therefore, I will fit into your Gen Z team. So again, we are using an extreme example so that when you're preparing for your own interviews, you can remember that this is not the way to answer these kind of questions. Okay, just because a grandparent or a parent can get along with your children who are reporting to you does not mean you can get along with peers who are the age of your children and your grandchildren. Okay, this is important to remember. Okay, and thinking inside the box. So again, there are people who look at a job requirement. Our general guide for job requirements is that unless you meet 50% of the job requirements, don't apply. Because we do have a lot of people who meet only 2 requirements. Number one, I have a degree and I'm a quick learner, and they decide that they are qualified for that job and they apply for that job. Okay, typically these are the kind of people who don't even make it for the interviews. So again, desperate by saying that you should hire me because I am desperate about this job, I need this job, it's really not saying anything about what you can do for the employer. Okay. Okay, I have again this suggested way of answering, right? For the previous question, why did you apply for this job? Why do you want this job? Is exactly the same way that you will want to answer this question, why should I hire you? Except that you would want to focus on your ability, your ability to do that job, and what do you bring with you that is different from other candidates. Hey. Wow. Yeah. Yes. To the person who said all the bad responses in the previous slide, yes, they all make you look bad. So you realize we have been repeating and repeating because we want everyone to leave this webinar remembering this, right? Your answers can make you look very bad if you're not very careful. Okay?
Without even realizing it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And many people, and get this, because we are in the banking sector, right? Many people are 100% about honesty. Yes, you need to be honest. I mean, we are for integrity. I have caveats to add. If, for example, right, you were fired from your last job, you really do not want to go into an interview and say, I was fired from my last job because, for example, I stole pencils from the office. Right? Something extreme like that. Yeah, as extreme as it is, we have seen people doing that. So that's why we are trying to encourage everyone to be very wise about being honest in your response. Yeah. Okay. And now this is the question that I think that will help all of you answer, all the questions that we have outstanding in the Q&A box. Okay. Why did you leave your last job? Now, many people, when they answer this question, right, a lot of negative things come out. And for many people, if you have successfully answered the first 2 questions, I can do the job and I want the job and I'm motivated for the job, right? If you give the wrong answer at this question, this kills your entire interview. And we're going to take a look why. And in this case, right, I chose the picture of a man on a mountain is for a reason that I will explain later. Okay. So before I go on to the next slide to show you some of the examples of what you should not say, I'm going to go through the questions to make sure that we have answered those that need. Okay. So interviewer repeatedly asked what you have done when I was out of the workforce for family reasons. What does the interviewer want to find out here? Okay, this is a direct response to the why did you leave your last job? So when you were out of the workforce for family reasons, right, the interviewer again is trying to find out your skills, which is one thing which, number one, can you do that job? Whether, for example, if you are out of the workforce for 5 years, are your skills still sharp? So that's can do the job, right? Will you do the job? Okay, how much has your passion for the job changed during your career gap? So for example, if you are passionate about, say, again, let's bring back to example, data. So assume that you're a data person, you had to leave the workforce to take care of your family, right? If you're still very interested in data, in your leisure time, you will be reading, you will be joining Facebook or Instagram committees or watching TikToks about data. So all these things will actually come out when you answer this question, what did you do during the gap? Right? And during, I mean, and if during your gap, right, besides looking after your loved one, okay, you were doing other things. These are all things that showcase whether you are that type of person who can manage stress, for example, handle stress. And so for those of our candidates, right, if you are coming out from elder care, child care, or family care leave for whatever reasons, again, this is something that you really need to be careful about when you talk to the interviewer, because at the end of the day, the interviewer, when taking in someone with a career gap, is going to be worried about, number one, whether this person is able to do that job. Now, what do we mean by this? This means that if the perceived problem is still there, for example, your children were young, you took care of them, and then now they are a bit older, they have gone to infant care or child care. Then if you apply for a job, the employer is going to think about, okay, what if your child gets hand-foot-mouth disease? Okay, which happens very frequently in Singapore, right? And then, how often are you going to take childcare leave? And then, are you planning more children? Because with every child, then you have extra childcare leave. And then, this is all the employer is thinking about. The employer is, thinking about all these. Or if it is elder care, for example, and you are still taking care of your loved ones. So what the employer really wants is evidence that you can still function at that level that they need you to function, even as you have sorted out your childcare arrangements. Yeah. So when you answer this kind of question, what was I doing during the gap, right? You really don't want to say things like, oh, I spend my time cleaning the house, I am OCD, between cooking, and so I have become a very good cook in the process. And now I'm here applying for this risk manager job. So it's not helping you. Okay? So I hope this clears it up. Okay, so the next question, move up in sales. Okay, the question about moving in sales and RM and was in investment roles for 15 years. Hiring manager sometimes wonder why you want to do the switch, right? So when the hiring manager wonders why you want to do the switch, it is because in the way that you answer the question, you're not giving a convincing answer as to why you want to do that switch. That means whatever answer you have given saying, oh, I'm very passionate about this, I really want to do this, is somehow not convincing enough to the hiring manager, which is why they keep on asking that question. I hope this helps. Yeah.
Well, if you want to know, one of the ways that you could talk about it is you may need to talk about the relevancy, like if you're from the buy switching to the sell or vice versa. You can always bring out examples of how you realize these are the problems and these are the solution. So you could provide the solution now that you're going to go over to the other side, since what when you're on the other side, what are the things that's happening. So actually it could be your advantage to say that, I know what's like on the other side. I know what is considered, what people are thinking about when they're on the other side. So now that if you're going to work for you, the advantage is I can use that as an advantage to help you, so to convince them.
Okay, I'm looking through the... Okay, Okay, that question about if it's your first job, you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, that's true. If it's your first job, you don't have to worry about
They won't ask you this question if it's your first job. Because they would have seen your resume and they would have known that you don't have a last job. So yeah.
Okay. So the question about AVP experience, how many years of experience? Okay, I'm not quite sure what this question is about, so we are going to leave it.
I think they want to know, if I want to apply for AVP position, how many years of experience the bank expect me to have? Is that what you're trying to ask?
If it is, right, we cannot give a generalized answer because bank to bank is very different, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, okay, so the next question is important for me to answer before we move on, which is, what if I'm thinking of switching industry? I want to try marketing roles, but I have no experience for it. How can I let the interviewer know that I'm willing to learn and hoping to have an opportunity to learn without coming off as entitled? Now, the reason why people come off as entitled, right, when they are trying to do a change of career, is because you are always, the people who come off as entitled, they end up giving that impression is because they just want a change in the role in a target company without having anything else to offer the employer. That means when you apply for that marketing role, right, you literally have nothing else that you can offer to the employer in exchange for the opportunity to learn marketing. So to the employer, it is a I lose, you win situation. I hire you and you gain marketing experience, but in exchange, as an employer, I don't gain anything because I'm paying you salary, yeah, for you to learn. So in this situation, right, we suggest that you don't do a full scale 100% pivot in the first step, but rather go to a role where you get to do that new skill 20% of the time or something, and then you still can contribute that 50 to 80%, so that to the employer is a win-win. Okay, you can still do 80% of this role for me, and in addition, I give you this new area for you to learn. In our experience, that has worked a lot better than straight out asking the employer, give me a chance to learn. Yeah. So I'm hoping this helps. And then, is there any tools or technique to find jobs that are suitable for me and match my skills to seek career clarity? Okay, so for this question, there are tools available, and if you will get in touch with our career advisors, if you don't already have one, a career advisor is well equipped with many tools for you to try out. So for this particular question about if I don't know what I want, right, that is again a very dangerous question. Meaning to say, we have again had job seekers go for interviews and then tell the hiring manager that they actually don't know what they want in a career. We have had extreme situations like that. Yeah, so they told the hiring manager, I'm applying for this job, but I actually don't know what I want in this job. So that is a big no-no, so please don't do that. Okay. Okay, I'm ready to move on because I think we've answered the bulk of what is. Hey, why did you leave your last job? Some variations of how employers use this. So remember, why did you leave your last job is always a way for employers to test your fit, right? And we are talking about your test whether will you do the job. They are asking this question to uncover any character flaws that you have, attitude problems, and any other reason, that you left the last job. Okay, so that's one thing. And they use all sorts of other questions to suss out this information. So if you didn't give an honest and convincing answer for why did you leave your last job, you can be sure the employer is going to ask all these other questions to try to get the real answer from you, which is what would your ex-boss or ex-colleague say about you? Okay. Many people do not prepare well for this question. So when an interviewer asks you this question, you cannot panic because you left the last job because you fired your boss, right? So that is dangerous. So if you're preparing for interviews now, please prepare for these answers, right? And what did you hate or like about your last job? So again, this is talking about whether you will fit the upcoming job. Okay, if what you hated about, and this is careful, if what you hated about the job was doing administrative work, but you're applying for another job where you're doing administrative work,
exactly.
right? It's not going to, it's going to cost you your interview. Okay.
Yeah.
And what have you been doing since then? Oh, and this one is again talking about your personality, your character, and and so for those of you who are doing job search and you're not doing anything else besides job search, our encouragement is please try to get a hobby. Many people who are in job search, right, identify so much with being jobless that you spend 8 hours a day searching for jobs and then you become very depressed. And when you go for an interview, right, and you don't get the job, you become even more depressed. So we have got people with us who are depressed and they don't know what to do because your identity is so tied up with the job and the fact that you're jobless, right, that you are no longer your own self. So please take note of this. This question is important to the interviewer because it tells them that you actually have a personality and you actually have a life outside of work. Yeah. And then describe your last project or team or workplace. In this case, right, I used Dr. Strange, who was in charge of a time stone for this picture, because this last question is actually a trigger question for many people. If you left your last workplace because of something bad that happened, like you quarreled with your boss or something bitter, many people leave this kind of trauma in their hearts without actually addressing the grief or the bitterness or the grievance that they feel. And then what happens is that they act very normal until they go for an interview and the interviewer asks a trigger question like this. And then that's when, when you are asked a trigger question like this and you haven't resolved that bitterness towards your boss, right? All this bitterness is going to come out in your answers and you don't want that. So if you need help dealing with past workplace problems, come to us and our advisors will help you to, reframe the past bad experience into something you can talk about at peace and very confidently in your next job interview. So that's what we want everyone to do. And okay, I've got new questions now. Hold on.
Oh, you want to finish it up first, Eileen?
Okay,
we're almost done, right? Then we can address all
we're
the
almost
questions.
done.
Yeah.
Thank you for your questions. Please keep them coming. Really good questions today. Okay, so what are your answers saying about you, right? Why did you leave your last job? Be careful if your answer is always saying, my ex-boss was the problem, or my previous organization was doing things that I couldn't agree with, or I didn't like this about the previous place, the previous environment, or something like that. The only time when it is a good idea to, I would say, blame the ex-boss is, for example, in my previous job, I was in charge of risk or compliance, something where integrity is of utmost importance. And my previous boss asked me to lie. And I quit because I wanted to, whatever. So about the only scenario that this kind of answer can work is this. And even then, it is a very dangerous place to tread. So be very careful if you want to volunteer this kind of answers. Okay. The suspicious or evasive type of answers. Again, if you're saying, why did you quit your last job? Then you say, I needed a break from the last job. And then you're applying for a similar job that's exactly the same as the last job. And then the interviewer will ask you, so why did you quit? And then if your answer is, I want to take a break, it's not convincing. It will just make you look like you're very evasive and that there's something to hide. And once there is doubt in the mind of the interviewer, they're not going to be very convinced about everything else you say. Yeah. So repeating patterns, series of contract jobs. This is important because in our day and context, right, contract jobs is very, very common. There's actually nothing wrong with taking up a series of contract jobs because in our case, for example, business analyst jobs, can be permanent, can be contract jobs, because many companies, by definition, a business analyst works on a project, and most jobs that are project-based will be contract jobs. However, there still remain a group of very old school employers who feel that once you have the word contract, or short-term jobs on your CV, they think that there's something wrong with you. So it's important for you to explain, not just in the interview, but also in your also in your resume, why the reason why the jobs are contract in the first place. So that's one thing that we want to highlight. The second, the blue box, the one that talks about repeating behaviors. I had horrid ex-colleagues in the last 3 jobs, right? This kind of answer is, again, going to make you look very bad, right? So when you actually are, there are many books out there, many YouTube videos that talk about how to answer the top 10 questions and all that, right? Be very careful. Every time if you talk about your ex-job, your ex-boss, or your ex-colleagues, and you're always saying that it is their fault, I do encourage you to, do some reflection on yourself. Because if the last 3 jobs had horrid people, and you're the only constant factor in the last 3 jobs, then I think it is time to ask yourself whether there was something else you could have done. And we're saying this to encourage everyone, because again, we have seen many cases of people with these blue box behaviors who are having problems landing new jobs. Okay, unresolved problem. Now this is addressing those people who are applying for the same scenarios that you resign from, meaning to say, I resigned from my last job because I was asked to work 12 hours. It was, for example, I resigned from Shopee because the team was very dynamic and we had to pull 24-hour shifts, for example, right? And then your next job, you're applying for Lazada, which the same thing is probably happening at Lazada too. And then you will have a problem because you're not, and then you say you are burnt out at Shopee and you're hoping for a new start at Lazada. So that, again, doesn't make you look very convincing, because you're essentially applying for the same nature of job, right? Yeah. Okay. And to the ideal answer to this kind of question, right, no matter what your gap is, right, is to always to be seen as scaling the next mountain. So I'm going to give an example, and I will repeat it once so that everyone can remember. So for example, I took, let's assume that you took a career break to look after your family, right? Then you can say that for personal reasons or family care reasons, I had to take a career break. I had to leave my job in Singapore and relocate with my spouse to take care of family in, say, Australia, right? And then I took the chance because then, okay, so this is what actually happened, right? Now, in this part of the answer, you are now showcasing that you have personality, you have passion about what you're doing. So assume that you resign from a data position, okay? But because I was always, because I'm crazy about data, even though I could not hold a full-time job while doing elder care in Australia, I tried my best to find volunteering opportunities in Australia, which allowed me to use my skills in data in non-profit organizations. Okay, so there again, you're already showcasing your motivation, right? So I have always been crazy in data. Okay, I had to take a family break because of whatever. I could not hold a full-time job. But because I'm still so interested in data, I used the opportunity. So see, I'm using mountain language. I use the opportunity to do volunteer work in data. So the choice of words you use is very important. And we want to encourage you that if you need help with the choice of words, please come sign up with our career advisors. Okay, so again, we're going to go through again. So I'm crazy about data. I had no choice, but I had to go to Australia. Okay, I used the opportunity to indulge my love for data in a volunteer field. I volunteered for this organization. Okay, I'm happy to say that at the end of it, I created a new solution based on an AI algorithm that I was learning then. Okay, Do you see what we have done? We have made your gap something very, very interesting, okay? And because of what I learned about data and about AI and what it can do, I started looking for jobs that had something to do with AI the moment I came back. And I saw your job advertisement. And that is why I'm here today. I've got the passion, I've got the knowledge in AI, and I want to learn. No, you don't want to say learn, right? So I want to contribute with the skills that I had picked up when I was in Australia during that period of time. And then you can sort of tease the employer by saying, would you have any questions for me? Or something like that. Yeah. Okay, Lionel, you can comment and you can, yeah, share whatever.
A very good answer. Yes. But you guys have to now put it into your own story, because
Yes.
you obviously cannot use the same. You just have to know the structure behind as well, what Eileen has been throughout this 1 hour plus, to let you know this. You need to have a structure to the answer so that you can answer the 3 whys. Right? If your answers that you give, ask yourself, am I addressing this? Am I addressing this? Am I addressing this? The answer is yes. Then your answer is a very, very good answer.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm ready now to make sure everyone remembers what I'm repeating, and then we can move on to the question. So remember what we have been talking about this last 1 hour plus is what you say about something says something about you. Okay. And the other thing to remember is that every interview you go for, you need to give evidence about the 3 things. You can do the job, you will do that job, and you do fit that job. Okay. And please keep the questions coming. We're now going to answer the questions.
I think you better address the salary one, because it's been asked.
Okay, thank you for waiting. Yeah, thank you for waiting. So I don't want to fill out my current salary. Yes, talk about it during interviews. How should I go about it? So in interviews, right, we typically encourage people to leave salary right until the end. If you are pressured about it right too early in the process, especially if a recruiter calls you up before you even gone for one interview to ask you your salary expectation, I will say decline, say no, I cannot give you an answer about expectation until I understand the job. And the reason why people get calls from recruiters before even getting an interview with anyone from the company, right, about salary is because the recruiters are using the salary as a filter to screen out the expensive ones. And my encouragement to everyone is don't be afraid to say no. I'm not going to tell you my expected salary because, you know, and many times, yeah. So this is one thing. We don't encourage salary negotiations until you're almost at or you're already at the hiring decision already. Anything earlier than that is merely being used to screen you out from that round. Yeah, so that's one consideration. Yeah. And the other, and I just want to share also that we have had other people telling us that they've encountered very rude recruiters who will just slam the phone on them if they refuse to divulge salary. So just in case you meet people like that, just take note.
Yeah, I mean, just take note, because if you, I mean, if that number that you're going to give is going to be the reason why they want to hear about you, then you have to ask yourself,
yeah,
is it, you know? But again, the meat and the you know, the meat chicken thing, you know, we do not know your situation. Maybe you really need a job. You've been out of job for 1.5 years, and you can't be always saying no to the salary. Then I would suggest you must already done some homework to know for this type of role with that number of experience, what is the ballpark number? And this ballpark number, how does it relate to you? I mean, there are many ways that you could do it. One of the ways that you could do is you have to calculate, you know, your monthly expenses. So at least whatever the salary is after CPF, a deduction, what not, must be able to pay the bills, right? And then if you say, okay, I don't want to eat hawker center food all the time, at least occasionally I want to eat something else, then you multiply whatever that number by a certain percentage. And if really last resort, because your savings been eaten up and you really need, then of course just use that number, you know. So number one is try not to, but again, we are not in your situation, because if you're out of job for 1.5 years and it's really eating into your, there's this thing called opportunity cost. So if really, when push comes to shove, you have to do your homework. Find out what is the number that is being thrown out there, and see whether that number is whether you can live with that number, because it's your life, If you've realized that it cannot, then you must think of a number that you're comfortable with, and give that number. I mean, really. But as we said, number one, try not to give. But as we said, we are not in your shoes. If you need to give, then you have to do your own mathematical and calculation and tell them, oh, this is my expectation.
Yep. Ready to deal with the other questions, right? So interview is a two-way thing. Some appropriate questions to ask to show that you are humble and also genuinely interested in the company.
Come to my seminar in September.
Yeah, how to finish well in an interview. So Lionel is having one of our upcoming webinars on what kind of questions to ask in an interview so that you can showcase your curiosity and your character. So we will leave him to answer those questions. And
okay, just to make a tease.
Yeah,
the word teaser is relevant to your situation. So the question that you're going to ask need to be relevant to your situation, so that it becomes your question and not a question that you find in the top 10 questions to ask your interviewer. And I'll leave it there.
Yes. And this is important because all of us are using ChatGPT or Bard nowadays, right? So you don't really want to be asking the questions that Bard is suggesting. Yeah.
And you don't want to ask a question that immediately they can give you an answer, because 20 people has been asking the same question.
Yes. Yeah.
So no matter what the question is, try to think of the context so that it's relevant to your situation, so that they know why you're asking this question.
Okay.
So they can bother to think instead of just answer it like the standard answer.
Yeah. Or worse, if you ask something that can be found in Google.
Yes. Correct.
That's going to make you look really bad. Yeah. So, okay, next question. I'm not going to answer the one on top yet, because that's a big question. I'll answer that later. How do I explain to banking and finance employers if I'm from supply chain, right? Okay, again, it is always about something you did in school that interested you in the world of finance. So it can be a module, or it can be your personal interest in personal finance that gets you interested in the whole world of banking and finance. Yeah.
You have to be able to come up with an answer, because how does one who's in supply chain suddenly has want to go into banking and finance, right? Obviously I do not know your situation. I cannot answer. So the SOP question is, when we give you the email to contact us, make an appointment, and we'll try to one of us will try to help you to answer this to answer this type of question. Yes.
Okay. So I mentioned not to apply for 2 junior jobs, right? Hey, where's the question disappeared? Okay. So someone with 15 years experience or more, right? You really should not be applying for management trainee jobs. And for that matter, if this is not okay, so point number one is that for the jobs that are advertised as management trainee, graduate, associate jobs, if you already have 15 years experience, please don't apply for them, because you will just get rejected outright. So that's one thing. And secondly, right, those of you who are very senior in your title, you really want to avoid applying for jobs that are too junior, unless you can put a convincing cover note in your resume that explains why you specifically want a lower role. There are 2 reasons for this. The first reason is that the employer is afraid that you are using them as a stepping stone. The moment you find something higher, you will move. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is that, again, if you're applying for a role where you're reporting to someone younger than you, and you can even do the job of the manager, that person is going to, in our experience, most of the time, that you will not have a manager who is so secure that the manager is likely to feel threatened by your presence. So this is usually not said in typical career books, but it happens and we have seen it. So in the interview, right, some of you may have interviewed with hiring managers who are younger than you, and you can even coach the hiring manager, and you may even wonder sometimes why you get rejected for no reason. Sometimes this is the unspoken reason that your experience is actually threatening to that person, and therefore for whatever reason you were rejected. Yeah.
As what you see, the answer is that evidence. So if you're answering going for a junior role for whatever reason, you have to show them you can do the job. You will do the job, because even though it's junior, and that last, as what Eileen mentioned, you gotta show that you can fit their culture, because you're gonna be working with people that are less experienced than you and things like that. So you fit. So if once you can, a cover note or your cover letter or whatever can show these three evidence, then at least you stand a chance. If not, I mean, that's the way it is, that will be the first response. Because imagine if they have 200 applicants for the job. They cannot afford to think at every application, oh, I mean, why this person want to apply for this? Why that person want to apply for that? No, they will just say, okay, disqualify.
Yeah, very true. And then remember, those of you who are applying to work with teams that are younger than you, being able to communicate with your nephews and nieces or children and grandchildren is not the same as being able to take orders and work as a team with people from Gen Z. It's very different. So if you're trying to show evidence that you can work with younger people and work with their pace, right? You really need to be giving other forms of evidence that show that you can, hit the ground running and run with a team like that. So again, if you need help, specific personalized help, please sign up with us. Yeah. So with regards to why did you leave your last job? Can I say because of career progression? Yes. This doesn't put your education level into limelight for the hiring manager, because usually the jobs that are advertised, they will have a minimum education requirement. So if you are looking for better career or progression and applying for a job where your current education cert already meets the requirements, right, that this won't even be an issue when you go for an interview.
Yeah, but for goodness sake, if you're going to use this answer about career progression, you better make sure that the company that you're signing up for has room for you to progress. Because if you answer that way, they're going to say, oh, he's going to quit or she's going to quit after they realize that there's no progression. So it's a two-way, it's a double-edged sword. So, obviously, if you're from a smaller company, you're going to apply for a bigger company, yes, you can use that. But if you're going to apply, as just now, the slide that shows same scenario, same situation, please don't use this answer, because straight away you'll be disqualified.
Yeah. And the question about I'm looking for a permanent role as a current is contract, right? That is fine. Your selling point for that role, your attraction to that role has to be more than saying that I just want to apply for your job because this job is permanent. Yeah, that's not a strong enough reason for an employer to say, gosh, you're the candidate we're looking for. So try to have something a lot more compelling than this. Yeah. Okay.
As we said, what is it that shows that what you can contribute? That's what the most important thing is. They want to know how you can contribute.
So the next question is the internships interview, right? Each of the instance when I scored badly for a subject from secondary school onwards. Well, we're talking about how should you answer this? Okay, do you want to take this?
I'm surprised that they asked all the way to secondary school. I mean, but 13 to 16 years old, and they expect you to be able to know what's going on around the world. You most probably be taking subjects that you're forced to take. That may not be applicable to you. So, I mean, you can go with that. I mean, it's like, when I was in secondary school, we very little choice of subject combination to choose from. So I have to choose whatever that is available. And just that I'm not, you see, it's like not everybody is good in math. That's the fact. I mean, myself, I'm very bad at math. So, but I have to take it, right? So you just have to be able to answer convincingly that, you know, this job, obviously, if this job requires that particular knowledge and you've done badly, then the question is why you're applying for that job, right? Because when you're applying for a certain job, you cannot be applying for a job that is doing something that you are bad at or something that you are that you don't like to do. Then it doesn't make any sense why you're applying for the job. So if they're picking on certain thing, you just have to show them that this bad thing that is happening in your that they happen to spot is not going to affect the job that you're going to take. You just have to convince that it's not going to affect, so that you can fit. You're a good fit for the job.
Okay, I am at this point, right? We are quite close to closing.
I think you have to do the poll.
Do you want to do the poll while we blitz through the questions?
Right.
And Adrian's going to help answer some of the questions that can be answered by typing. So thank you, Adrian.
Ellen.
Oh, is it Ellen and Adrian will both be helping the typing. So I think they both have found questions that they like to answer. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to answer the key questions first. And the questions that you asked that can be found from Google, I'm going to skip them. Okay. Okay, wanting a break before your next job is a good time to talk about the climbing the career mountain. Is when you tell a story, it's very compelling. It's about, I just climbed one mountain, I'm very tired, I want to regroup. Now that I'm refreshed, I'm ready to climb the next mountain. So remember the mountain story? That's a mountain perspective, okay? Okay, illegal and fraudulent work, like I said, it is a great time for you to showcase your integrity. So again, in this scenario, you need very specific help with a one-to-one with our career advisors. So for your case, really encourage you to sign up with our advisors, and we will help you to reframe your entire answer. Okay, when you say you left due to long working hours, you have to be very sure that the upcoming job does not have any long working hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what you should do is, find out what is the nature of the job, because sometimes, I mean, I just using accountant as an example. During the closing period, for sure you're gonna work long hours.
Yeah.
So find out the nature of the job. Is it always every day 24/7? Then if you are not cut up for it and no one will blame you if you can't, then don't apply for those jobs that require you work that kind of hours all the time.
Yeah.
But for all different jobs, there are different, different as the business cycle goes, different, sometimes in certain period you need to work longer hours, and so you just have to decide whether you will like that kind of that nature of the job. And if you don't, then you shouldn't be applying for that role to get yourself into this fix, this situation.
This thing again, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, are we launching the poll?
No, the poll is not out yet.
Oh. Okay. By the way, guys, please help us with the poll, because we need it to understand what kind of workshops we should be running upcoming. So I'm going to try to blitz through the other questions. Okay.
And also, Yili, why don't you forward the slide to the email so that they can...
Oh, yeah, thanks. Okay. Yeah, this is the way to contact us. Wait, sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, so for those of you who do not already have a career advisor assigned to you, encourage you to take down the details and write to us, and we will get in touch with you ASAP. Yeah. Okay. What if the company requires you to put your last salary in your resume? Should I include? So again, this is a chicken or fish question. You decide, and you need to know the cost to you if that happens. Yeah. Then let me see. Okay. Okay, how would you know if the new company will have progression or not? Okay, this one you will be able to tell by using Google and using LinkedIn. Okay, the kind of the kind of roles,
and things like that.
The org chart, things like that. Okay, about referrals, right? These days, employers will not ask about referrals until after they offer you a job.
Yeah,
the very, very last. So that's not an issue you have to worry about. And from this person is from banking. After retrenchment, took a long career break, got into an SME with a lower salary and want to return to banking. So how best should I answer this move? So again, if you have managed to get into the interview after a long career break, you already probably have thought of a convincing reason what you want to do from it. So and this question actually requires more help with our career advisors. So I'm going to leave you to get in touch with us, and then we will work through a stronger response for you. Okay? Okay, if they slam the phone on you when you refuse to give the salary, what does that reflect? Yeah. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Yeah.
Bad not on you, bad on them.
Yeah, bad on them. Yeah. And by the way, guys, these stories are not made up. They actually happen to other people. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if it's your first job, how can you ask that you want to learn or gather experience from this company? Okay, the fact that when you go for an interview, it is understood that you want to learn and gather experience from this company. But what is going to make you attractive to a company is not the fact that you want to gain something from them, but what you can offer to them. So always focus on what you can offer to the company rather than what you're trying to get from that company. And when you focus on that, right, you will naturally be able to talk very convincingly when you're in an interview, when you're at a networking, or when you're writing up your resume on LinkedIn. So that's our encouragement to you. Okay. Oh, no more questions.
Yeah.
Okay, what am I missing? Lionel, when will your session to speak about questions to ask employers in interview? Okay, if you can't wait, right, please sign up with a career coach first. And then you will be in a very good place to ask Lionel specific questions during his webinar.
Oh, but no guarantee you'll get Lionel, so don't give them, set their expectation. It's whether I'll be on duty on the slot that you are assigned to.
Yeah.
September 7 is the date.
Okay, for those of you who do not know about our events, right, if you go to the IBF generic website, there is an event segment, and then you can actually click on the button to be alerted about our events via email. So all our events are always publicized about two to 3 weeks before the event, and we do run these webinars very often, at least once or twice a month. So encourage you, if you are not already on our mailing list, please check out the IBF calendar, the event calendar, and get yourself on the mailing list. Yeah. And by the way, we're not emailing you the slides. Yeah, no slides will be distributed. Okay, towards the interview ending, interviewer invited you. Do you have any questions for me? Okay, thank you. Adrian's answering that. Okay, the question about what if it's not an ex-recruiter but company in-house, I'm not quite sure what point it was referring to.
I think that he or she is referring to the salary thing, because we mentioned that it's recruiter asked you, but she said, you know, it's like it's the same thing. You don't need to answer this question unless you really, you know, as I said, we do not know your situation. So first, you know, the first thing is try not to give. But if you really, you know, want to need, you know, feel that you want to really work for that company, or you really need the job, yeah, then you need to do your own homework and calculate what is the best number that you are comfortable with.
So are we
I think that's it, right?
We've answered all the questions, I think.
Yeah.
Adrian's typing an answer. Do you want to wait a couple minutes for Adrian to finish his answer?
And yeah, about the YouTube, yeah, some of our I think our webinars do get uploaded into YouTube. So for those of you who missed the first few parts, just gotta be patient. Our communication team do upload our workshop or webinars onto our IBF YouTube channel.
And also for those of you who are happy to connect with us via LinkedIn, feel free to connect with us. We have a very small team and we're all very, well, I like to think we're all very friendly career coaches. So yeah. Okay, if wait,
if you are assigned, you cannot request to change. No. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, to get our LinkedIn, wait, let me. Okay, let me just type our names, Lionel Tan, and yep, that's our LinkedIn. You can search for us with our names via LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's a challenge. See whether you can find the correct anytime.
Yeah. And by the way, our career advisors can also help you with LinkedIn. So if you need help with your LinkedIn account, your LinkedIn presence, and how do you work your LinkedIn to get leads from recruiters and all that, right? Yeah, do come to us for help too. Yeah.
I think that's it. We are clear. Thank you guys for sticking around. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, everyone, for spending your time with us. So very warm welcome, and I hope to see you all again at the next webinar. So we do have another one next week about sabotaging your job search. So if you haven't already signed up, please do go to our website and sign up for it. Thank you, and see you next week.
Thank you. See ya.